Hello everyone, welcome to a new video of Workers Hammer. My name is Vincent and this is Eibhlin, and today we have a special guest, Max Shanley. What's your title, Max? It's
I don't have a title. Well, gobshite in chief of your party.
of your party.
Of your party, yeah, they're officially gobshite in chief.
But you're
Okay.
like a founding member or leader of the Democratic Socialists in your party.
I'm a member of the SYP, yeah.
The SYP.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, welcome, Max.
Yeah.
Very nice to have you here.
It's really
That's
cool
all
to
right,
have
thank
you.
for having me.
Yeah.
I think you're our first guest in Workers Hammer.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's going to be
First
more.
of many.
Yes.
The
First of many,
Put
yeah.
it on your CV, Max, and you'll go far with that.
Of course.
It'll be the headline.
Yes.
It'll be at the top of it.
And Carrie Murphy in your party, I'm sure, is going to be delighted.
Oh,
Yeah.
it'll be tremendous.
Yes.
Yes.
So today, there's a lot going on in the world, obviously, with the
Yes.
war in Iran, massive Israeli-American assault on Iran. We're not going to get too much into this. I'll just note very briefly that the Democratic Socialists in your party have put out a statement, which I thought was pretty good, actually. We have, I think, agreement on this because partially it's called Smash Imperialism, Victory to the People of Iran. And partially it takes like a clear side with the with the resistance of Iran against Israel in the US. And for me, that was notable because a lot of people on the far left don't want to sort of make that statement very clear. They stay on like very pacifist slogan, including your party's official statement. So I thought that was good. So I'll put it in the description, both our statement, but also the Democratic Socialist statement. But really what we wanted to discuss and why we've invited you, it was to go back a little bit on, we've titled this podcast kind of broad, like what's next for the left in your party. And I wanted to touch a bit, so Farage is rising. There's a lot of debate on the left, what to do. The Green Party right now are the main option on the left, really attracting most people. Your party has become sort of an irrelevant or near irrelevant force. And the CEC elections, so the result of the elections and the leadership of your party ended up being not great for the Grassroots Left, which, we all supported here. So I thought we should discuss a bit the situation more broadly in the country, the situation of the left and of the left in your party. So with this kind of broad introduction,
Okay.
what's a bit your view? How do you view your party and particularly the socialist left at this moment?
Your party is in a sticky wicket, to put it politely. There was a great, humongous level of enthusiasm. 850,000 people, supposedly 850,000 people registered interest in the party when it was announced. Only 60,000 of them ended up joining for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Both internal reasons and external ones. I think, look, the fight inside of your party over the past 9 months or so has been presented by the media of all stripes on the right and even on the sort of the left wing media, so to speak, as a personal battle between Jeremy and Zara.
Absolutely.
It was never that.
No.
It was about two competing visions for the party. Did you want to take a kind of mild social democratic orientation inspired by the manifestos of 2017 and 2019, or did you want to go beyond that? That was the that was the real question. And I think on both sides we allowed even ourselves to get mixed up in the personalities of it all, and not focus actually and not sort of be headstrong in the fact that no, this is due to political differences. It's not. It's not a question of personalities. It doesn't matter whether your teams are or Team Jeremy. That's kind of irrelevant. Politics, as Tony Benn used to say, politics isn't about personalities. It's about issues, right? And the issues facing our country and our party are great. So that's what we should be focusing on.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we supported the Grassroots Left was because of its political perspective, and we did insist that there are two different visions of the party between the Corbyn wing and the Sultana wing, and when Zara started speaking in Liverpool and talking, very strongly against NATO, against Zionism, for the working class, we said make Zara's speech party policy. But since then, I think seems like you agree that's not how it played out, is it?
No, I mean, so there's a few things to discuss. So I think a lot of the people voting in the election didn't understand what the actual Central Executive Committee was there for. They didn't recognise it as being the political leadership of the party. I've seen this quite a lot where, during my own election in the South East, people were referring to it as like a board of trustees or management committee or something like that. Like they didn't understand the political element. Now, I think that that's largely down to the inheritance from Labourism of kind of, one big strong leader and we all follow them, and then the members just kind of manage the finances and the bureaucracy and so on.
Get the votes out.
So they couldn't conceive of a party that was collectively led.
Yeah.
And then I think on top of that, that in and of itself was compounded by the fact that the level of political debate during the election was just so low.
I know. Yeah.
It was just so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was reduced to, are you Team Jeremy or are you Team Zara? And not, are you for social democracy or are you for democratic socialism? Like, there is a difference between the two.
Yeah.
And though that option wasn't allowed to be presented, if you... I'll give you an example. In 2015 and 2016, when Jeremy ran for leader of the Labour Party, the Corbyn campaign had full access to Labour's mailing list. All leadership candidates did. In this election, no one did.
No.
So you actually couldn't make the case to members for your politics, right? Last time I checked, which admittedly was a good month before the election ended, something like 1,000 people had signed up to the Grassroots Left mailing list. How can you compete when you've got that's 1 in 60 people inside the party? There was a massive power imbalance in the fact that the people running the election were also the ones that were running the many, but are also the people that run Peace and Justice Project, and they're all based in the same office in Islington. And there's absolutely nothing corrupt about that whatsoever. You shouldn't be questioned.
Of course not. No.
You shouldn't be questioned.
Everything is above board.
It's legit to point. There's like
no advantage whatsoever.
No advantage. It's not like they could see the results in real time or anything like that.
Come on.
But there was a structural imbalance there. Right? Because in my mind, this is what I would have done if I was them. I would have looked at the Your Party membership database. I would have looked at the Peace and Justice database. I would have done a cross-correlation. I would have found out who was on the Peace and Justice Project mailing list, who I then knew was a member of Your Party. And I would just focus resources on getting them to back my candidates, right? Which is ultimately what they did. The Grassroots Left budget, I don't think ever went above £2,000. Someone estimated in a meeting that I attended the other night that the Peace and Justice Project and the many spent something like £60,000.
Gosh.
So,
but if I can, I agree first of all with your description of sort of it was never about just personality. We strongly supported Zara, particularly after her October speech, but for us it was because we could see Zara Sultana was leaning on the most radical sections of the party, essentially. And we just simply pushed for her the political line she was drawing, against NATO, against Zionism, against the monarchy, for a radical, for a radical form of socialism. However, when it comes to the election, for me, it's all true what you're saying about Corbyn, about the Peace and Justice, about how they had a massive advantage. That's true. Corbyn always had a head start, not only because he's the Pope of the left, quote unquote. Everybody knows him. But he's not for us.
not for us.
Yeah, he's not for us, but he's known. So he had a head start. But I think maybe we can get into this. For me, the mistake of the grassroots left throughout has been not to play out to a stronger card. The only way you could compete with Corbyn was really to try to make the case to as much people as possible, and I know the limitations of this technically, but to as much people as possible, how we are offering a radical, socialist, working class, anti-NATO, anti-Zionist vision for this party, and the other side isn't. And it's true, Corbyn's platform was just like, there was no absolutely
Jeremy.
there was no other content than this, and for me there was kind of an easy
Vague
opening
stuff.
to really seek to expose them by really campaigning on those politics. But rather, I found throughout that the grassroots left was really pushing mainly and sometimes exclusively members democracy, and for me that really backloaded, I think, the strongest point that grassroots left could represent. I don't know what you think about that.
So it's very easy to view questions of party democracy in the abstract. It's just a matter of rules and so on, right? But the simple fact remains that if you don't have a democratic party, you'll never build a democratic society, right? Because you tend to, all political parties hitherto in existence have reflected in their structures, practices, and modes of behaviour the type of society that they come from, not the one that they're attempting to build.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially,
Go on.
right. So if you are trying to build a socialist society, which we all believe would be radically democratic, egalitarian, you need to build a party that's like that too, right? But it's also the way in which class struggle occurs inside of the party form itself. And it's also the only mechanism whereby truly radical, genuinely socialist politics can emerge, right? Free of bureaucratic interference or domination.
Yeah.
However, I fully understand what you mean by the fact that the slate focused a lot on that and not enough on like the political substance, right? I was personally very annoyed by that. The story of the slate is an interesting one. So originally there were a bunch of groups that got together who had kind of formed inside of your party. So you had Eco-Socialist Horizon, DSYP, Greater Manchester Left Caucus, and Organising for Popular Power. And that was the original Grassroots Left. And we were ready to launch a slate in late December, sort of middle of December. And then
right after the founding conference.
Right after the founding, like we'd been discussing it since then, and we were getting, we had a full platform that was like 5 pages long. It was very worked out. This is what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, why we're going to do it. It all flowed logically from bottom to top, right? And then what happened was the Socialist Unity platform reached out about trying to bring all the various left groups together. Zara Sultana got involved in that. And basically, largely DSYP then spent the next couple of weeks arguing with people over the fact that you couldn't run an election on the basis of half a page of A4, which is what all these various left groups wanted to do.
Oh, I see.
You focus on 3 or 4 things and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think it was largely because they didn't want to actually have the political arguments, so they did procedural stuff.
Plausible.
to try and get around it.
Yeah.
Then what happens is literally on the Thursday before before nominations open and Zara Sultana's involved at this point. Zara presents this platform, which is a heavily watered down version of the original Grassroots Left platform.
I see. Okay.
And basically uses her force of personality to get it through. Because otherwise there would have been no platform. So to give an example, the comrades from Platform for a Democratic Party didn't think that the slate needed a platform. They didn't think that it needed a name. And it definitely didn't think it needed a website.
Oh.
But what's the point of a slate then if you don't have at least a platform?
God knows. God knows, right?
Okay.
So we end up with like this 15 points thing. And the idea, or at least those of us from the original Grassroots Left hope was that we could go back to that later on and build on it. And there was just consistent opposition to trying to expand it, even when you would go to the slate committee, as was, and say, we need substance. Candidates are asking for information on X, Y, Z. We can't give it to them. Do you just want them to make it up?
Right. Oh dear.
Do you just want them to make it up? And they'd be like, you know, and then, so it was incredibly frustrating. And it led to a lot of arguments inside of the slate. But it's part of the reason why politics wasn't front and centre, in the sense that, like, there was an unwillingness inside of the Grassroots Left to discuss politics, which then meant there was an inability for the Grassroots Left to discuss politics in the wider campaign.
Why? I guess my question is, why was there such a unwillingness to discuss politics?
I think because it was such a broad coalition of groups from a variety of different traditions. So Socialist Alternative were involved, the CPGB, Weekly Worker, SWP got involved, Platform for a Democratic Party, and a few others, DSYP, you know, and so on. There was I think there is a tendency on the British far left to try to obfuscate its differences and be like, don't worry, you know, we all believe in the same thing. Well, we don't. That's, you know, it's just a simple fact that we don't. And there's also, you know, a more economistic tendency on the far left. And then at the same time, there's also like a more political tendency. I would say that DSYP is in that more political tendency. And so, it was just competing philosophies and differences, but no one was willing to actually like argue it out and then just have a vote.
But do you not also think, you know, looking back to the Socialist Unity platform, like, it always struck me that one of the things that all of the different groups that were assembled there had in common was they all front-loaded the organizational questions at the expense of politics, even for all their differences. And so I think that is worth examining, because that's something that we tried to push against within the Socialist Unity platform. And
I remember, because I used to chair their meetings.
Yes.
So, I found it really weird. Like, I was just like drawn in, completely independent to like do it. And like, it was weird because lots of people were really deferential to me. And I was like, what's going on? Like, Jack Conrad. But there'd be these big debates. And then Jack Conrad from the Weekly Worker would go, I think we need to hear what Max has to say.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. Yes.
Like, what is going on?
And don't you remember that they would discuss almost anything but politics?
Yeah. No.
You know? You know, but actually on the question of democracy, what you just said, you know, if you can't build a democratic party, you can't build a democratic society. So, well, abstractly that's true, but generally the socialist movement, the left, will find itself in a minority, including especially in a broader left formation, whether it be your party or the Labour Party or whatever. So you do have to see the connection between the bureaucratic structures, the bureaucratic measures in your party, you know, the control freakery of Harry Murphy, you know, Fonthill Road, Jeremy Corbyn, wherever it comes from. Like, you mentioned at the beginning, and we agree, there were two different visions of the party, two different visions of the society that you want. So the connection between the control freakery and the absence of democracy and the vision of society that they actually represent, but they keep it very vague. They don't say this openly. And I think that's kind of what was missing, including, I would say, in the Grassroots Left, is the understanding that you need to see the connection between
it's
these
all
two
interlinked.
things.
You can't
it is
separate
very much
them from one
interlinked.
another.
And so that's why we think to fight that, you have to make very clear the connection to the political view. You know, let me put it a different way. why do they want to exclude the left, the Corbyn wing? Why do they go against everything that Zara Sultana says and does? It's not a personality thing. So in order to fight them, you have to really front load the vision of society, that the political points that the grassroots left did have in its manifesto, but sort of shortchanged them, as you said, shortchanged themselves.
I also think, there's never been a reckoning of the Corbyn era in the Labour Party.
Funny you should mention. We bang on about this all the
but there
time.
hasn't been. It wasn't perfect. We were never a hop, skip, and a jump from governmental power. People kind of deluded themselves into, especially after 2017, that with a snazzy comms strategy and getting Jeremy in a nice suit will be running the country by Christmas.
Yes.
And it was just, I remember saying to people at the time, so realistically, if we're to stand any chance of carrying out a manifesto promises, a couple of things got to happen. One, you're going to have to purge the PLP. You're going to have to do all the writing. Now, Boris did that in 2019 with the Parliamentary Tory Party. He just did all of his opponents in. I was really impressed. In fact, I texted John McDonnell that day and said, now's our time to do it, because they can't, because the media wouldn't have been able to say anything. So we would have had to have done that. Even then, having a kind of Corbyn loyalist parliamentary party wouldn't have been enough. We would have had to have brought in our best and brightest into the state with us to have stood a chance of ignoring the question of state transformation, just trying to carry out mild social democratic measures through the British state as is, right? You would probably need to bring 10, 20,000 people with you inside the state, minimum. Right?
I mean, if you get there,
if you
the
get
British
there.
ruling
This
class,
is a hypothetical.
I think the British ruling class would have never let Corbyn take power, honestly.
No.
You would have had a situation of such a clash and such clash struggle that, I'm sure they would have used extra parliamentary means.
We had soldiers, there's the video of the soldiers shooting at
Jeremy Corbyn,
photos of Jeremy, and there was generals saying that there would be a military coup,
the row of fucking medals on his chest on television,
of that. But let's say in a hypothetical scenario where they do let him form a government, right? You would need to bring maybe 10, 20,000 people with you into the state, minimum.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
To try to organise within it to override the bureaucratic pressures from inside of the state within the civil service, the opposition to that, but also to try to open the state up to external forces that weren't organised money, basically. If they had tried to do that, they would have had to have brought their best and brightest with them in there. That would have meant there would have been no one left on the outside to do any kind of organising work, because one of the things that we never did from 2015 to 2019, and we're reaping the rewards of it now, is there was no political education whatsoever. It was all these people, these nice people, Jeremy and John, they're going to bring socialism.
Yeah.
They're going to do socialism.
Yeah.
Socialism's when they get elected.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not how it's going to play out. And the people in Jeremy's office got into this mentality that we're going to be a number 10, we're going to be these important people, we know what's best. They don't have a fucking clue about the pressures that they were going to face. Maybe one or two of them did.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two of them did. But the overwhelming sort of tendency on the left during Corbyn's time as leader was, we must focus on forming a government above all else, right? And now that kind of goes back to the history of the Labour Party, in that its sole reason for existing is to form a party in Parliament and struggle for governmental power. And I say governmental power, not state power, because they're two entirely different things. And, because you can form a government but not hold state power, so... Anyway, that's a discussion for another day.
How is that linked to the lessons for the GL? Because you
Yeah,
introduced
no. Okay,
and Your Party.
So because we never had that reckoning, right, and because we were unable to, at any time between 2019 to the founding of Your Party, to discuss these things openly, right? Because everyone was waiting for Jeremy.
Yeah, that's
right,
true. That's true.
No question.
And he is now venerated as like a socialist saint or whatever. And look, don't get me wrong, he's a lovely man. He's a lovely man, but, you know, he's made mistakes. He is just human. Like, lots of people have internalized his initials, but he is not Jesus Christ. Because they never had that reckoning, Your Party, for a sizable number of people, became a continuation of that project inside the Labour Party, right?
Yeah, you can see
and that was really it. You know, we said before that, you know, the two wings were a social democratic wing and a more democratic, radical democratic socialist wing, right? But then at the same time, it was a Labourist wing versus one that wanted a radical break with Labourism. But you could only do that radical break with Labourism by having the reckoning with Labourism first.
Yeah.
And there was never an opportunity to have that. And there was never an opportunity to do that through the CEC campaign.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there was many years. Like, go ahead, Eibhlin.
No, I was just going to say, the reckoning that needed to be had is a political reckoning, right?
Yeah.
You know, what were those red line issues that Corbyn bottled it on? Honestly, there were issues, you know, Trident,
well, Brexit.
Brexit.
We can talk about this.
Yeah. The Palestinian question, Zionism, you know, that's what brought him down in the end. So by reckoning, I think we mean two different things, because
maybe.
Honestly, those questions needed to be recognized as those are red line questions. If you're going to form a party, you're going to have a clear stance on those questions and you know, understand what happened, what went wrong in the Corbyn era on exactly those questions.
But there's no kind of... There is a culture of rejecting any kind of critical analysis of what went on.
Definitely.
You know, I've faced this a lot over the course of the past 9 months. The amount of times people online have called me a wrecker and a saboteur and everything like that. And it's like, I've known all these people for like well over a decade. I'm just still fighting for what I thought we all believed in.
Yeah.
And they can't.
They
can't get beyond that because they've become so wedded to this idealistic view of Corbyn and the people around him. You know, Alex Nuns, who wrote the book The Candidate, and then went on to become Jeremy's speechwriter, was supposed to be writing a book a few years ago called Sabotage, which looked at the you know, how Corbyn was brought down. And I always said to him that he would need to include the self-sabotage of the Corbyn years, which is many of the things that you've now, you've just brought up, basically. Like, in many ways, they sabotage themselves by bending to the will of bourgeois popular opinion, not actual popular opinion, but the popular opinion of the press and so
I think
on.
that's
For me, that's the central element from the Corbyn period, and the lesson that's not been learned or discussed seriously. Like, Corbyn kept constantly conciliating to the right, constantly, and essentially refused to organize a real struggle against the right wing of the Labour Party. And on one question after another, he kept conciliating. And for me, that process evolved, you know, through Zionism, through the question of the European Union, all the way to, I think by 2019, he was a bit of a moribund figure, actually. And so for me, the question, I mean, I do understand you raising a question of like, if he takes power, what do we do? But for me, the real lesson, I don't think he was close to take power, was really how to take power in the Labour Party, actually.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And for me, it's a lesson of like Leninism. So that's why I'm a Leninist. And for me, the lesson, if I just finish to translate it on the Grassroots Left campaign. Now, obviously, very different context. Corbyn at this point represents the right wing in Your
Oh, yeah,
Party.
definitely.
And for me, the Grassroots Left campaign kept conciliating Corbyn, kept entertaining the illusions in Corbyn, rather than really trying to distinguish itself politically sharply from Corbyn, and try also to put pressure on him politically. And that's why this point on democracy really was like democracy. The structure of your party really reflects what you want to do. And as you said, this Corbyn wing or the Zahra Sultana wing wanted to do and still want to do different things. And so it's really on this terrain that you can fight the bureaucraticism. And for me, the main lesson from the Corbyn period, it's really well, how I call Leninism. It's like you need to really not only have the correct program, but you need to fight for it against the opponents that are in your party.
No, I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the central lesson that still for me has been a problem in the Grassroots Left campaign.
I mean, just to go back to like just before the Grassroots Left campaign was formed, obviously we had founding conference. You know, the Democratic Socialists of Your Party went to great lengths to try to work a lot of these things out. So we had a constitutional working group which wrote a constitution and standing orders for the party, like a model one. That was before the party had put anything out, which prepared us because then we could put forward loads of amendments that already well thought out and everything like that, which included collective leadership. You know, we were the first to raise that.
You originate,
the party.
You raised that thing,
and then we wrote a political statement, to replace the really kind of tepid one.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was just blocked, along with loads of things that we put forward at the founding conference. It was just blocked.
Yeah.
By who?
Yeah, by the people.
By what right did they have to do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And these were things that should have been brought up during the election, but there were very few opportunities to actually go out there and like make the case for your politics. Like there were two in my region. There were two. No, there were three in person. Well, no, three organised from below hustings. So there was one in Kent that was done online that I think is on YouTube. Your Party Swale put it up. Then there was one in person and hybrid kind of in Brighton, and then there was one in Woking. Those were the only opportunities. Both in-person events, there were probably 15, 20 people. No real kind of mass audience. And the entire thing just became about processes.
Yeah.
And people wanting to talk about process.
But are you saying that even if the Grassroots Left had done like the best campaign focused on politics, it was pretty much a done deal because there wasn't enough opportunity? I'm not sure if I buy that.
So I went to the so there was one official hustings. The party said that they were going to run loads of them.
Yeah.
They ended up just doing one. It had questions that had apparently been submitted by members that definitely were not submitted by members. In fact, you could see,
of course,
the candidates from the many had seen the questions beforehand and were given answers because they were leaning into the screen and going, so, they're reading off the script. They're kind of looking.
Like they're
trying to squint in and,
I know.
to find out what the answers were. Right? And there was no audience participation. You couldn't make your contribution.
But there were
audience member came in. Like that was the one and only official way you could make your pitch to party members.
But there was plenty of meetings. I can remember meetings that I attended, mostly in London and some in Liverpool and that.
Yeah, London and the Northwest.
Yeah.
There was more opportunity in person and Yorkshire, right? But outside of that, it was an indoors election.
Well, that is true. But also, I think there was an unwillingness, as we mentioned, to front load the politics of the Grassroots Left. And I think one of the factors was this fear of being seen as splitters and wreckers, because I remember speaking in a number of meetings about this, where Zara spoke in Acton. I remember a meeting in Newham, and this was always an issue. And the way we addressed it, the way I addressed it, was like this, because you don't want to be seen as splitters and wreckers. This is very unpopular with the members of the party. They didn't like the infighting. And, I think that's reasonable on their part. At the same time, there were two wings of the party, as we have said. So I would argue that take the politics that Zara Sultana has outlined and that the Grassroots Left adopted. This is a basis to build a solid, unified party, argue for these politics, and then if the Jeremy Corbyn wing wants to split, let them become the splitters and wreckers. That the way to unify the party was to push the best politics that the Grassroots Left or Zara had on offer. Now, Zara herself disagreed with that, with taking any kind of political fight to Jeremy. And I think that was a problem. So there were opportunities to raise that. And, I don't disagree with you about the character of the campaign and all of that. But there were opportunities. I think the problem was more a political one, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no. I mean, the splitter and wreckers thing, I think this goes to show how short the kind of Corbynista institutional memory is, right? Because so many of them were drawn in to kind of left-wing politics from September 2015 onwards, or summer 2015 onwards, that, they forget the kind of political origins of even Jeremy's politics, right? So Corbynism has a legitimate claim to a line of descent from Bennism, but Bennism to the Labourite tradition was always seen as somewhat of a heresy. And now what they're saying is that the people in this election who probably best represent the politics or closest to the politics that Jeremy Corbyn believed and advocated for before he was elected leader are the heretics. And they can't see the connection between how have we come, how has this happened? How have we degenerated into being this, we're the correct ones. We're in the right.
But I think
we're the respectable left.
Yeah, but I think for me this speaks more because I don't agree with you. Like, I understand that opportunities were limited, and and I'm not saying that if the Grassroots Left would have done what we say, they would have won, and everything would have. Maybe we would still be a minority. But I think like this discussion is important because people on the Grassroots Left and on the left wing of your party have to draw a lesson.
Yeah.
And I have a problem if the lesson we draw is only that, well, there wasn't enough opportunity or there wasn't organizationally it was too hard, because then I feel we're not going to get to the nub of like,
I mean,
you know what I mean? And for me, it's political, because even if there was more opportunities, I think the main pitch of the Grassroots Left deserved them. Like, I'll give you just a simple example. The Corbyn campaign, like, skillfully used this motto of like, we need to turn outward. We need to turn to the country. We're going to make the party work and do this. And that appealed to quite a lot of people in the Corbyn thing, but also in the middle, who are like, enough of this fight, And if the answer of the Grassroots Left is mainly democracy, you're falling kind of into this trap.
But this goes back to the limitations of the Grassroots Left platform.
Yes.
Right? This goes back to like, I pushed quite a few times for us to actually present like a full political program for your party.
Yeah.
Now, the rebuke was either obfuscation, like, oh, I disagree with this and I just don't want to debate it, or like a really, like, quite frankly, stupid one of, oh, it's up to the members to decide. Well, they're voting for us in the election, so they're making a decision this way, right? And so we weren't outward facing, right? We we had a political strategy that was never acted upon. And the political strategy was always meant to be outward facing and trying to draw people into the party. And we weren't able to do that
Yeah.
because there were different elements of the campaign that did not want to
Because for me,
Yeah.
it would have
do
been
that.
so easy
Yeah.
to
It's
say,
yeah.
like, the Corbyn ring, really what they represented, the reason why they didn't usher any politics or didn't draw any sort of policies or something was because they really wanted to get the support of the more liberal, more conservative on the left, but,
Yeah.
conservative
small
wing
c.
of the party, and sort of have
Yeah.
this sort of wishy-washy UN type, little bit socialist party. And it would have been quite easy to really attack this on this terrain, that we are the wing that represent those who want a radical working class socialist
Yeah.
party. And really, what's their line on NATO? The reason why they didn't took, it's not that we think Corbyn is pro-NATO or pro-Zionist or something,
Yeah.
but the reason they didn't say anything on those points is because they were trying to build a coalition with people who do kind of support NATO, who
Yeah.
are soft
Yeah.
on Zionism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And pressing on this, I think, would have been
Yes.
much better for the grassroots stuff, and would have also helped to teach people in the party that this isn't a thing of personality. This
No.
isn't just a shit factional struggle, that there's actual issues behind it.
Yeah. And it might have it meant the grassroots left would have done better in the elections, because from what I could see in any meeting that I've been to is those points, the sharp points that the grassroots left actually had, were popular. And if you remember in Liverpool at the conference, this much the same attendance on Saturday and Sunday. But when Zara Sultana spoke and made a radical left-wing speech, people were on their feet. It's popular. I'm not saying there wasn't support for the more right-wing version of your party, but it would have, I think the grassroots left would have done better in the elections to win over the wavering elements, the people in the middle who didn't see quite what the difference was. By pushing the politics, grassroots left would have done better.
So I agree in part, but I think it's also important that we delineate that there are clear, divisions within the party membership itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that the grassroots left's main body of support came from the activist layer within the party, right?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Definitely.
Whilst the many support came from the passive people who, I've paid £1.50 a month to join the party. That means I'm governing because I get to vote online every so often.
In my home, in my house.
And obviously that is actually a bigger audience.
Yes.
Right?
They have the numbers. It's true.
And it goes back to the structural inequalities of the election, right? Because we did not have a database of 60,000 people like PJP did, which they could then use for the many. At most, we had 1,200 people on our database. At most.
Yeah.
It was incredibly difficult. We didn't have the money. Even if we'd had the data, right? Even if we'd had, say we had 30,000 people or whatever, you could have run targeted ads on social media and everything. And you could have got analytics back from that, and you could have seen what your sort of audience was into and everything like that. We didn't have the money. I don't think grassroots left had more than $2,000 in the bank.
Yeah, you mentioned.
I don't look. I think these are real. It's not like I don't.
No. I'm not trying to say it's just down to structural issues or it's just down to political issues. Like this, all kind of melded together in one big messy ball. Of shit.
I mean, these are real objective limitations, and honestly, I never expected that the grassroots left would win those elections. I thought maybe it would be a bit closer, because it was 7 grassroots left, 14 the many. So I thought it would be.
I mean, there was some weird psychological shit happening in the days before the election ended.
Like
what?
Jeremy Corbyn followed me on Twitter.
Really?
And I was like, what? And then he started following other people in the grassroots left.
Is it him managing his Twitter account, though?
No,
that's
it's probably Laura.
God knows. It's probably his wife.
His wife.
Yes.
She is the tweeter-in-chief of the party. If I'm the gobshite-in-chief, she's the tweeter-in-chief.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, go on.
My other thing with the grassroots left is I don't get why endorse Corbyn on the slate? Like,
Oh,
because that
yes.
ended up giving, we've talked about it before
Yeah.
we were on air, but that ended up giving a massive amount of vote to Corbyn. And now
Yeah.
Corbyn looks, and if you look at the vote, like this.
He looks like this hugely popular.
Yes.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, Jeremy got Stalin levels of support
Yeah.
Yes.
in the
he
Your
did.
Party election. I mean, fucking Uncle Joe would have blushed if
Yes.
14,000 votes. Oh my God.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
That's
I'm
on the
pretty certain.
grassroots left.
I'm pretty certain Kim Jong Un got less votes during his recent re-election as General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea.
Possibly.
Like, so you know, it was a bit ridiculous.
Think about that, grassroots.
Think
left.
about that. Think about that. But I think it was an attempt to say this isn't about personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it was the right decision or not, well, that's a question of, you know, hindsight, really, isn't it? I do think it was interesting that they weren't willing to do the same for Zara. They weren't like, you
Well,
know.
of course they weren't.
No,
so,
but
yeah.
I knew that they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I knew that they
They-
wouldn't.
yeah.
But you
Yeah.
would think that that would tell
Yeah.
a lesson to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
to
I
the
think-
membership.
I think it's the pressure you mentioned. Like everybody I feel on the
Yes.
grassroots left, they don't like Corbyn's vision. They don't like what his wing represent, but you can't attack Corbyn, you know, because
Yeah.
Corbyn is, as you said, the Ayatollah,
Yeah.
the Pope of the left.
Yeah.
But however, this election was obviously a struggle against him,
Mm.
and you had to find ways, I think, to attack him essentially. Now you have
Yeah.
to be smart with this because
Yeah.
Corbyn is popular. You know, you can't just throw rocks at him. But for example, the grassroots left could have said, well, we open letter to Corbyn. If you agree with the platform of our slate, we want you on it. you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, he would have not
Oh,
agreed.
yes. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, you know, he doesn't agree with the slate. He doesn't agree with the slate, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he hated the fact that we even endorsed him.
I know he did. I know he
Yes,
did.
As if he had a right
Yeah.
to say who can and who can't endorse you. No?
I know.
Actually, I came up with a way to do it. There was a meeting in Walthamstow, and a woman asked this question about a woman in the audience about the infighting. And I said, well, that's a good question because it's something everybody thinks about. And I said, well, yes, you know, it is a problem and it is important to try and forge unity within the party. So all Jeremy has to do is to say, I actually agree with Zara Sultana on Zionism, on NATO, on turning to the working class. And I think she was right that there were problems last time around, 10 years ago
In the Labour Party.
in the Labour Party
Yeah.
on the question of Zionism. She was right about that. I said, that's a basis for unity. And I thought, and the audience actually quite liked it, But what I was trying to do is to take away the responsibility for being splitters from the grassroots
Yeah.
left and from Zara Sultana. And it was just another way of saying,
Yeah.
take a political fight to Jeremy Corbyn. Zara came back and answered. She was one of the people on the platform, and she said, oh, we need to have Jeremy in the party. Well, I'd just given her a way to say how to keep Jeremy in the party on a clear political basis, not
Yeah.
on the basis of this vague
Yeah.
politics that he won't spell out. He just defines it in opposite, it's
Well, this
about
is the
what
thing,
they
isn't
don't
it?
want.
It's like, what the fuck has happened?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
no, like, I remember pre-2015 Jeremy Corbyn,
Yeah.
right? It feels now like completely different set of politics to,
Yeah. Well,
to the Jeremy Corbyn of post-2015.
yeah.
Your party was an opportunity for him to go back to that because he
Mm.
didn't have the constraints of
Yes.
the Labour Party or being expected to form a government within
Mm-hmm.
2.5 months or however quick people thought that he'd be able to do it. Right? If he'd wanted to, he could have turned Your Party into like a purely like Benite party.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd wanted to do that, he could have done that. Instead, the lesson which he and the people around him seemed to have learnt was we were beaten by the right wing of the Labour Party. So if we're to win, we have to become like them.
To become more right wing. I think
And-
that's
And
valid.
what has ended up happening is they've ended up being worse than them in many cases.
Yeah, no, I think there's some truth in what you're saying. But I'm only because I'm hearing you talking about the Benite wing, and I'm not a specialist of Tony Benn, but what I've seen in the Labour Party in general, it's always this willingness of really conciliating your politics in the name of unity with the right.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think
There's
you
an
have
old
in
saying.
Benn.
There's an old saying about Labour Party is that it's like a bird. You need both wings. to
Yeah.
fly.
That's this classic.
Yes. Yeah.
But that the result of this is always that the socialist wing is basically subordinated
Yeah.
to the right. Like
Yeah.
that's basically 100 years of history of
Yeah.
the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And this is where the bureaucraticism comes from, because the right has to repress the membership, which is always more to the left, has to repress and use bureaucratic method to repress the radical aspirations of the membership. Now, how does that translate in your party? Because in your party, supposedly there isn't the Blairite wing, right?
No.
There is, but it really becomes, if
But
Corbyn
all
wants,
political parties have a political spectrum within them.
yeah, all of them
And-
do.
and the two sides of the spectrum are basically this. Do you believe in a politics more orientated to those that Jeremy Corbyn professed in 2015 onwards, in which case you're on the right wing? Do you support the kind of politics, or even further to the left of the kind of politics that Jeremy Corbyn articulated
Well,
pre-2015?
But was he? Is there really such a distinction between Corbyn before 2015?
Yeah, no,
after,
there is a
politically?
distinction. There is a
Um,
distinction.
Would it-
Okay. Well, we can talk about what that distinction is, and also I think you have to keep in mind that what Jeremy Corbyn ran on in 2015, what made him popular, were all the things that he bottled it on.
Yeah.
And so now I think it's plausible to say he has drawn the conclusion that, better not touch any of those. And that's part of the
Bourgeois
reaction to Zara.
respectability.
Yeah, bourgeois respectability. That's part of why he reacts the way he does to Zara Sultana. And, one of the things we've said about that in the past is when Jeremy was a backbencher, it didn't matter what he said.
No.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
So he could have a very radical program. So looking at the situation today, I think you can compare the program that he stood on, that he had, let's say 2015 or even 2017, the program he has today. But also the situation is different. It's more a question of why did he not follow that program? Why could he not deliver on that program that he had in 2017? That's more the question for today, I think, rather than supposing the Grassroots Left adopted the most radical version of Jeremy Corbyn's program.
Yeah.
Supposing your party adopted it, right? Today, in order to do that, you're going to have a fight with Jeremy Corbyn because he has considered that the thing to do is cut off the most radical elements of that program. And so what do you do about that? I mean, that's the situation we have.
How about this as a different descriptor of the two wings?
Yeah.
Bourgeois respectability versus proletarian defiance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
that's fine.
I mean, there's problems with Zara says it. I wouldn't end, but
No one's perfect. She's a
sure.
professional
Yeah,
politician.
in general, okay.
In general.
I can agree with that.
Like,
Yeah. The other point I wanted to raise, and maybe we can move to the what to do in a bit conclusion, but one last point I wanted to raise, it was, I also think, thinking of like, again, I'm not trying to throw rocks at the Grassroots Left. I voted for them, I campaigned for them, and I want them to do better, or I want the left wing to do better. So that's why I'm thinking of those political lessons. The other thing for me is the Muslim community, because there's been a growing gap between like the far left and the Muslim community. And I thought the Corbyn side, again, was relatively skillful in trying to exploit this. Their tiny little, platform that fits on a cigarette paper had a point which said, we need to mend relations with the Muslim community. And I'm wondering, like, what did the Grass Left do to try to compete with this message and try to, I don't know if you know more, but for me, there wasn't enough made on this, really. And I think Zara Sultana played a not the best role on this.
The labourist norm when it comes to, communities is that they're homogenous blocks.
Yes.
And they're all the same.
That's true.
Yeah.
We need to appeal to the Muslim community. We need to appeal to the gay community. We need
One
to
label.
to,
Yes, that's correct.
like they're all, and which really means we need to appeal to the petty bourgeois community leaders, right?
Yeah.
And ignoring the class dynamics,
Yeah,
even inside of those.
Yeah, and different social
That's true.
attitudes
In
and
different
everything.
social
Yes,
attitudes and everything like
absolutely.
that. So, not all Muslims are socially conservative,
No,
that's true. That's
no.
true.
but the way in which the many and lots of people from that kind of wing of the party act is as if they are a homogenous, socially conservative bloc.
Yes,
It's
yes.
just not true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, like there's now a group called Muslim Socialists of Your Party
Yes,
that
I've
have
seen
come
that.
out and they've been
Yeah.
very strong about no, this is bollocks.
Yes, and
Mhm.
within it, there's an LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus
Yeah.
Muslim wing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Yeah.
like no, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it plays into actual right wing stereotypes
Mm.
of
Yes.
Socially
Yeah.
conservative Muslims and
socially conservative Muslims who, you know, unwilling to integrate or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes. But don't you think that the grassroots left kind of allowed Corbyn to get away with it, to allow them to posture as the representatives of the Muslims in the way that you describe, you know?
I mean,
And by the way, we mentioned in one of our podcasts that part of what they meant by that was to shut up about the trans question
oh yeah,
in order to get the
Yeah,
Muslim vote.
definitely.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not the simplest question in the world to take up, but I mean, we've written about it a number of times. It is really important to take up both the trans question and the Muslim question in a way that tries to unify both on a pro-working class basis. This can be done, but it was a mistake of the grassroots left, I think, to leave, you know, the Muslims, quote unquote, to Corbyn.
I mean, we had several Muslim candidates on the
Yeah.
grassroots left slate, and they, you know, they got increasingly angry as the campaign went on because of the way in which Muslim people were being
portrayed.
portrayed by
Yeah,
the
I
many,
see.
right? And there was attempts to rectify that and to say
Okay.
to voice that opposition publicly and so on.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, there's only so much that could have been done.
Mm.
You know, it was a very short campaign. We
Yeah.
had very few resources. Practically the entire campaign was run by Democratic Socialists of Your Party.
Yeah.
They did most of the grunt work.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, and we're 9 months old. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
We're-
quite
Yes.
impressive,
we're a
honestly.
newborn,
Yes.
right? We punch high, right?
Yeah,
well
you
above
do.
our weight.
You do.
Yeah, but I mean, you're
Yeah,
totally right that the
it's-
Muslim isn't a block of
No.
a homogenous. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. There's a ton of Muslims that are absolutely pro-trans or whatever. But I do think the left needs to develop a strategy to reach out, actually, the more social conservative layer, actually, of the
Yes.
Muslim population. And I can think easily of two things that could have been done easily. The question of Zionism looms
Yeah.
large. The you know, Corbyn had to be forced by the RCG to say, yeah, I'm against Zionism, you know, but
choke
would
it
never
out.
yeah like I think be aggressive that actually we're the wing that's going to be consistently anti-Zionist. And
Yeah.
the second, and that's a bit of a deeper thing for me, it's more like the battle to defend trans rights. I think sometimes I've been waging a too sometimes moralistic or idealistic, that you have to
Identity
agree with
politics, yeah.
all the ideas in your head with the gender theory and etc. Meanwhile, that actually what you need to agree is the question of like defending the rights of trans people, and you don't have to agree
I mean,
with
I
everything.
think that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why the formation of the Trans Liberation Group has been so excellent, because they are an explicitly class struggle
Mm.
organization made up of and run by trans people
Yeah.
who have a specific class orientation and class focus.
We've had a
Yes.
few exchanges with them, but it'd be good to talk to them more on.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, the
Yeah.
TLG are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice actually to have a discussion
Yeah,
with them, maybe an organized discussion.
be good. I would
You
like that.
know.
But anyway, I was just pushing back again because it's like, you're absolutely right. This was a short campaign, no resources and stuff, but I do feel there's still ways for us to drop like deeper political lessons as to how the far left can go forward. But maybe we can get to this and maybe bring this discussion to a close. Like,
Yeah.
Corbyn has won the majority on the CEC election. Where is your party going to be in a few months? I don't know. And
Yeah.
what should the grassroots left or whatever's left of it, or the far left in your party, what should we be doing?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't want this discussion to be just about the past.
Well, yeah, like
because it is really important. What do we do now?
well, yeah.
And to make sure that people don't just get demoralized, go out of politics, because there are positive developments, even though the grassroots left didn't win, But I think that's actually really important, and to keep on trying to draw out the lessons,
So, I mean, let's just assess the situation that we find ourselves in now. So, the many won. They won with a proper majority, right? They're not going to be collegiate with their
No.
opponents, right?
No, they're coming to get us.
full blown. They might not have won an absolute majority in terms of votes, but they won an absolute majority in terms of seats, which means the tyranny of the majority is about to reign.
They have
Yeah.
power.
Right? They have power. They're going to use it,
Yes.
and they'll, use it to whatever extent they deem necessary. Your party is already kind of was, but now will remain a kind of hostile environment for socialists.
Yes.
It will put forward a political agenda that is to the right of the Green Party on
Probably.
most issues.
Probably.
You might be right.
Certainly indistinguishable from the Green Party.
It will never have branches because the threshold is 20%, which is so high that they're just not going to be formed.
You think there's going to be no branches?
No. So the way I think things are going to go is at the next conference, they will get rid of collective leadership entirely.
Probably.
And reinstate the Führer principle, which post 2015 the British left seems to have entirely embraced this idea of one big, strong, supreme leader, and that leader is Jeremy Corbyn somehow.
Double tragedy.
Yeah, double tragedy.
Going into a farce, and so they will then replace that, and they will try and build a kind of LFI-like organisation, not Labour Friends of Ismail, La France Insoumise.
Yeah.
And you never know these things. And and they'll try and do that with like Jeremy at the helm.
Yeah.
And maybe the CEC will remain as some kind of rubber stamping advisory council or something like that. But at this point, it is now a rubber stamping body anyway, right? The Peace and Justice Project posted immediately after the election results came out, Jeremy Corbyn has been elected parliamentary leader.
So ridiculous.
And it's like, no, he hasn't.
No, he has not.
No, he hasn't.
No, he
there
hasn't
hasn't been a single vote.
No.
Like the CEC hasn't even met.
No.
How has he been elected
Just
to
some
this
fake
role?
post.
It's just like,
because it's the coronation he wanted to get.
He is the king of the party.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I think they're going to solidify that at the next conference. And I think they'll go after the proto branches that do
Oh,
exist.
yes. Yeah.
They'll probably demand that they stop referring to themselves as your party organisations. And they won't be able to, they might go up in the polls a few %, but come the next election,
Maybe.
your party will be a bit of a busted flush, I would imagine.
You think?
Because the Greens have essentially supplanted them now.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The Greens, Nigel Farage,
and the thing that the Corbynista wing and the Green Party kind of share is that, they're largely groups of middle-class liberals with bright ideas. But they're hostile to one another because there's a sense of entitlement in the in the Corbyn wing.
Okay.
Right, and you saw this through the campaign that they are the ones with the right to. They're the ones with the right ideas, and they should be the leadership. And there will be bitterness that grows between.
We'll see how it plays out in the local elections in May, for example.
It's funny because I thought Corbyn would be happy that Zach Polanski is now becoming the new king of the left. Because Corbyn, I don't think, never wanted to be with to lead a new party again and lead the left again. Like,
well,
he can
I
just
always
give his...
remember on the final night of the Corbyn campaign in 2016, we all went to United's headquarters because that's where the volunteers were. And near the end of the night, before we all went off to the pub, in United's basement is their executive council room, executive council chamber. And loads of volunteers kind of gathered in there, and John McDonnell made a speech, and he ended the speech with a joke. He said, "Anyway, everyone, I'll see you all next year," right? And everybody expecting that there would be another leadership challenge in 2017. And everybody cracked up laughing. And Laura Alvarez, Jeremy's wife, is in the room with one of her friends, right? And I'm sat here, and she's probably sat where you are, but there's so much noise, so many people are laughing that she has to shout to her friend. And she's talking to her friend very loudly, and then the laughter cuts, and Laura can be heard saying, "He won't be doing this again."
Oh.
Now, I was 6 feet away, so I know that happened.
Okay.
Right? She might deny it now, but that's my recollection of events.
Gosh.
What changed?
That was 10 years ago.
What changed in the space of those 10 years that now he has a right to rule?
Okay.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Maybe we should end on that. Leave people something to ponder.
Maybe we should. I want to add one last point that I agree entirely with your description on the situation where we're in.
Yeah.
I just think we need those leftist element. We need somehow to get together and develop what I think was lacking in that election campaign, and is this sort of real political program that can answer reform, obviously, but can also answer the Green Party. We haven't talked much about the Green, but I think this is a massive problem. You know, they are now hegemonic on the left, so we need a clear political distinction with them. And I think having really political clarity, not on all the question under the sun or whatever, but on the key question facing Britain right now, this is how we can fight Corbyn. Because it's by really showing that we actually have a plan to make this party work. Because let's be frank, the Corbyn win doesn't.
Yeah.
The only political coherence is Jeremy Corbyn is the Pope of the left, and we will purge the far left. That's the only thing they can sort of unite around. And if we can find a way to take those far left element who want a socialist radical party and develop a response, at least, even if your party crumbles, there'll be something left out of it.
Yeah, we need to draw these forces together, plus others, into like a multi-tendency socialist organisation. We're not talking about people dissolving themselves, right? But there being one kind of unified organisation with everybody, you know, all the Sparks could be in there as the Sparks' faction or like that. And that could then potentially provide an embryo in 5, you know,
less than that, but
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I know.
For something else.
God, I just don't want. What I'm worried is that your party is going to dissolve, and all this sort of layer of people in the Democratic Socialists for your party around the left are just going to be demoralized and sort of either just go with the Greens or drop out of politics entirely.
No. Yeah. You know, I've had conversations with some of the younger comrades in DSYP who are like, "Oh, maybe I should go off and join the Greens." And I go, "You do realise how opportunist that sounds?" They go, "Oh, well, I know how opportunist it sounds, right? But I want to, you know, I want to be, this is them, not me, saying, you know, I want to be involved in something where I could actually potentially have some degree of influence or whatnot." You know, look, I think it's good in one sense that, you know, the Greens are popular. They're putting forward vaguely social democratic ideas, left social democratic ideas. My worry is that the castle that they're building is entirely built on sand. You know, they have no analysis of the state. They have no analysis of like political economy or anything like that. They're all very good, well-meaning people. But due to that lack of analysis, were come the next election they to win, I don't know, like a slim majority in Parliament, what would they do? They're setting themselves up to fail. And there's 2 approaches that we could take as socialists, which is there's 3 avenues you could go down. You could just dismiss them outright. you could like go all in with the Greens, which I'm not, I'm not in favour of, but I understand why some people are. Or you could try to critically, from outside, appeal to the Green Party membership and raise these questions to try and at least stir some kind of debate from amongst the membership themselves and the challenges that they're going to face. Because look, the Green Party of today is not the same Green Party of last year.
That's
No,
true.
that's absolutely
It's got
true.
an entirely new membership.
Yeah, it's different.
That's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
But there's another strand I think that we have to take into account, and that is we have to warn people, within the socialist movement, why the Green Party is not the solution, cannot be the solution to Nigel Farage, to the rise of the right,
Yeah.
and prepare them for that. And even if we don't win the majority on the left or of the potential audience, they must know that there is an answer there. And because there are people on the left in your party as well who want to hear that argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we have a responsibility to address that.
Yeah.
I
think so.
and try and explain in a way that's understandable why this will not work because of the nature of the Greens, the nature of the challenge with the far right, with Farage having the allegiance of the working class in large part, why you need to win them back. So I think
well,
that's
and
one
also,
of the
how do you
things.
deal with the question of the petty bourgeoisie?
How do you?
Yeah,
Yes,
that
yeah,
too.
exactly.
And their inbuilt Hitler particle,
Yeah.
as Trotsky put it.
I think this is so funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think this is, I feel a kind of more immediate sense of responsibility to do that. Within that framework, yes, you can win over some people who've gone to the Greens as well. But I think there are socialists there who want answers to this, and this will actually help stop demoralization, people from just dropping out and so on, which would be important because, the situation facing the left is not in our favor, I would say.
No.
Anyway.
Should we bring this to a close?
I think we should bring it to a close.
Do you want to add something? No?
Thank you for having me. It was tremendous.
Oh, thank you
Excellent.
so much for coming. It was very nice.
I will put in the description links to Democratic Socialists for Your Party or any other things you want there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sure.
you can let me know.
Terrific.
Look in the description and subscribe if you're not already subscribed.
Yeah.
And like or comment if you didn't like. We have a lot of comments usually, so there's a lot of debates going on there. So there you go, and we say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.